Hi everyone, this is a Debate Us video on the potential November-December topics concerning cryptocurrency. This will be an introduction video to cryptocurrency more generally. So regardless of which topic that is end up being chosen, this will provide a good framework for debates about the origins of cryptocurrency and then some of the pros and cons of cryptocurrency more generally that I think will be important and relevant when you get to debating the specific resolutions. And just a little of a reminder for anybody that's not familiar, the two public forum options right now are resolved, increase United States federal regulation on cryptocurrency transactions and or assets will produce more benefits than harms. And the second option, resolved, the United States government should implement a central bank digital currency. So again, in this presentation, I'll be exploring just an introduction to cryptocurrency and exploring some of the benefits and harms associated with cryptocurrency. So one of the first things I think it's important to discuss in the context of cryptocurrency is kind of the subtext of currency more generally. And how did kind of currency come to be in our modern society? And how does it function? And then where is cryptocurrency situated in light of the broader context of currency more generally? So currency really emerged as a byproduct and an after fact of a barter society to what I term the solution to this problem of the duality of desires or double coincidence of wants. Essentially, in a barter economy, it's predicated off of people having the ability to exchange goods for other goods, right? So maybe one person has chicken and they want to exchange that for fish, or they want to exchange that for some other kind of good. But in some respect, you would need both people in that transaction to actually want the good or the service that the other person was providing. So in this type of exchange between two people, it means that one person wants to buy exactly what the other person wants to sell, right? If not, maybe you have to get a third party involved. But you can clearly see how in a more advanced society where there's a lot of people, how this would kind of encounter some problems, right? So let's illustrate this with an example. Suppose a lawyer wants a new pair of shoes. The lawyer doesn't just need to find someone who has a pair of shoes in the correct size to sell, but they also have to find a person who will also be willing to exchange the shoes for what the lawyer has to offer. In this example, legal services. So trades like this in a modern context, if there was no currency that provides kind of a solution to this, are unlikely to occur because not only are you unlikely to find the exact person or entity that is selling this type of shoe that would also want legal services in return. So currency kind of provides this sort of universal value. And I've identified two of the primary benefits associated with currency or a money. In the United States, that would be a US dollar, but in other countries that would differ quite drastically. So let's kind of explore that. So first of all, money is oftentimes considered an instrumental good, right? So money itself is not valued, right? You don't value the paper money, right? So that doesn't have some kind of value. I mean, I guess you could like burn it if you really wanted to, if you wanted to get like maybe the warmth, but just at a more fundamental level, money doesn't have any kind of intrinsic value. It's instrumentally valuable based on what it can be exchanged for. And so I think in some ways, though, money as a system is based on two kind of ideas, right? And over time, money, it has developed in society, and there's really been two types of money. And I like to distinguish them as commodity money versus fiat money. And so commodity money is money that has kind of an alternative use or value. So in the United States, that used to be the gold standard. And in fact, this was true in a lot of different societies in which gold was used to back up the US dollar. And it's kind of based on some level of scarcity, right? And in fact, all currencies rely on scarcity. If there's an unlimited amount of money on Earth, then none of it is valuable, right? So sometimes the scarcity is enforced through some kind of natural authority in the sense that there's a finite amount of gold that exists in the world, and therefore money attributes its value based on the proportion of gold that's used to back up maybe a $20 bill. So the United States was on a de facto gold standard since the 1830s. And the Federal Reserve, which is the United States central bank, passed a law in 1913 to hold gold equal to 40% of the value of the currency it used. However, in more recent times, especially during the Great Depression in 1933, the US President Roosevelt removed the gold standard. And this kind of resulted in the current monetary system that we have in the United States, in which the US dollar is considered a fiat currency. So it's not based on some kind of commodity like gold. And so just generally, money is generally accepted as a medium of payment or medium of exchange, meaning that parties don't need to share reciprocal desires for goods and services as they might in a barter economy. And money has a store of value, which is to say that money doesn't depreciate in the same way that maybe a pair of shoes would after you wear it, or a car would after you drive it, right? Sure, there's maybe inflation, but in general, money keeps the same value over time. Okay, so again, fiat money is distinguished from commodity money, has no intrinsic value. And the value of fiat money is through social and legal norms. So in the United States, that's kind of upheld through some kind of legal human authority and through legal tender. And it's enforced through central banks. So in the United States, we have the Federal Reserve, who controls the money supply to commercial banks. They set interest rates, things like that, right? And so legal tender is basically this idea that if you have a debt or an obligation to another party, that party has to accept the local form of currency. By, like, in the United States, that would be like the dollar. So, you have the debt that you have to pay rent at a specific end of the month, and your landlord would have to accept a payment of maybe US dollars, right? In this example. And it's legal tender that requires these entities to accept payment in the form of a US dollar. And in other countries, that's also the same thing as well. So again, just kind of taking a step back and looking at it from the bigger picture, all money kind of generates its value based on some level of scarcity, either through natural causes or through human institutions. Things like that are what provide money its value in our society. So now that we kind of have situated, the historical development of money, why is it used in societies over time throughout, much of human history, especially in human civilization, where does kind of cryptocurrency fit into this general framework? So first of all, I think it's important to talk about the definition of cryptocurrency. So cryptocurrency is defined as a type of digital currency created from software in which a network of independent computer nodes confirms transactions through a decentralized consensus mechanism. So in this case, the decentralized consensus mechanism is also known as blockchain. So blockchain is like a really important term to use. And I think especially when you're trying to debate this topic, it's important that you kind of have a good understanding of the differences between, blockchain versus cryptocurrency more general. So blockchain is really the technology that allows cryptocurrency to operate. But in recent times, blockchain has been used for a lot of alternative purposes. So it's used sometimes in supply chain management to help verify, various steps of how goods and services were produced. So there's some articles out there that talks about how in a future society that is more concerned with ethical sourcing of various goods and services, blockchain may be used to, validate all parts of the supply chain. Or blockchain in other respects can be used to provide some kind of backing in other respects. And so one of the things that we just talked about, though, is that money relies on a form of scarcity, right? So what is this scarcity as it relates to cryptocurrency? So cryptocurrency really takes its advantage of cryptocurrency miners, right? So we have the blockchain, which is essentially a decentralized ledger, as I kind of explained, in which it's a spreadsheet that kind of updates all the time, right? So you have, certain lines of data, and that data cannot be edited, right? So as soon as it's been, established, it's always there, right? And how is it really established, like a transaction occurs, is through what we call, cryptocurrency mining or Bitcoin mining. And miners kind of take advantage of certain things by verifying transactions across nodes. So it's like essentially a system of computers, like your own personal computer, that are used to verify transactions that might occur kind of on a global scale, right? I think that's a really important idea, and that's based on the blockchain, right? So the miners are the ones that provide some kind of scarcity, and it requires miners in some respect to compete hashes for ledger blocks that fall below a certain number for Bitcoin, and that's what is used to implement this sort of scarcity. Okay, so now that we talked about that, let's talk about one of the primary development of cryptocurrency and one of the primary examples of cryptocurrency, which is Bitcoin. So here's a little bit of the history of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin really emerged through the development of cryptography technology. And so in the years between 1998 and 2009, there was 2 attempts at creating online currency in the examples of B-Money and BitGold, but they weren't really successful, right? In the same extent that cryptocurrency were. So it wasn't really until 2008 when there was a paper published about Bitcoin by a pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto. And this was kind of the creation of Bitcoin. And then kind of zooming out in the macro environment, the socio-political context that was surrounded this 2008 and what really led to the rise of Bitcoin was kind of distrust in traditional financial institutions. So banks are usually how you might have like a credit card, right, or something that is used to validate certain transactions, or even our money is kind of runs through banks. And cryptocurrency has a mechanism of kind of bypassing these traditional financial institutions, and in some respects like that, it is beneficial. So Satoshi Nakamoto, though, is again a pseudonym, and he's listed as the author of the Bitcoin white paper. This person also created a message board called Bitcoin Talk in 2009, leaving several messages. Okay. So here's kind of the history. Bitcoin launched in 2009. In 2015, there was a lot of use of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in particular on dark forums that were used to exchange a lot of illicit goods and services. So weapons, drugs, even sometimes financing terrorist organizations. And the US government seized down and was able to seize about $1 billion worth of cryptocurrency assets at the time. In 2016, Ethereum launched other forms of cryptocurrency and its growth to today. Okay, so let's talk about the blockchain. So all cryptocurrency relies on blockchain technology. And imagine, that there is a spreadsheet that is duplicated millions and millions of times on the internet and is constantly updated, right? So on the spreadsheet, you can only add new rows, but you can never modify or change any of the existing rows. So it's kind of secure in the sense that there's a pretty detailed list of all the maybe transactions that happen. That's what really makes Bitcoin and cryptocurrency more generally a secured form of a transaction. In each kind of block in this sort of blockchain, so each like maybe row of data that you're adding contains the signature of previous blocks, right? Linking them together in a chain. As transactions get administered in a distributed, totally decentralized way, we see the rise of a new way to store and exchange information, not unlike those of a new internet, right? So, and as we mentioned, miners compete to try to find nonces that generate a signature that falls below the current difficulty target. It's computationally expensive, but financially lucrative as miners get rewards. So people get financial incentives to have their computers in like being able to mine and verify various transactions on the blockchain to create new blocks to verify various transactions. Okay. So just a difference between fiat money and cryptocurrency. So fiat money has legal tender, whose value is tied to the U.S. governmental institutions like the U.S. dollar, while cryptocurrency is a digital asset that derives its value from its native blockchain. Okay. So the value of cryptocurrency comes from blockchain, whereas in other respects, It's the sense that what makes the transaction secure. So now that we've defined kind of the basics of cryptocurrency, it's important now that we kind of discuss some of the general pros and cons of cryptocurrency that you might see as you start to debate the topic. So a little bit of some background. So cryptocurrency has grown a lot. Here's the top 10 cryptocurrencies. There's a lot of different kinds, right? So we have Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, even kind of these, more meme coins like Dogecoin that have developed in recent years. And that cryptocurrency is popular specifically in less developed countries that often rely on things like migrant remittances as it avoids foreign transfer fees that we'll talk about a little bit later in some of the pro section. Okay, let's get into the pro arguments. So one of the first major benefits is this idea of banking the unbanked. So right now globally, there's more than 2 billion people who don't have traditional bank accounts. So cryptocurrencies has the capacity to really change these people's lives. So a large number of these people are concentrated in developing countries. So, certain parts of Africa, Latin America, and certain parts of South Asia. And large amounts of these people live in developing nations where their capital is kind of unprotected. They don't have a bank where you can create a savings account, or, they're not, exchanging stocks on a market or anything like that. And oftentimes, some of these people live in autocratic regimes that manipulate local currencies through taxation and inflation. So one of the benefits of cryptocurrency, it's really one of the only true global currency, right? Free from any entity's influence, right? So without the complex bureaucracy of traditional financial institutions that might manipulate things like through inflation or interest rates, cryptocurrency kind of has a universal value. It's not contingent on a specific government or institution. So without these sort of bureaucratic barriers, it can have this appeal of being able to be beneficial across borders. There's also a lot of implications for this for things like migrant remittances. So remittance is where somebody lives in another country and then they're sending money kind of across borders in order to maybe back to their family, right? So in the Philippines, for example, it's very popular for people to leave the Philippines and work in another country and then send that money back, or a portion of that money back to the home country. But the World Bank estimates that migrant remittances are on average charged a 9% fee, right? So that's 9% that doesn't go to your family or whatnot. So I think one of the benefits of cryptocurrency, beyond just maybe providing banking access, is that it could be used as a mechanism for migrant remittances. And that could have a huge effect of decreasing poverty, expanding entrepreneurial access through things like investing, maybe in businesses, things like that. So, okay. One of the other benefits, I think, of cryptocurrency is just this idea that cryptocurrency isn't constrained by a traditional nation state or a central bank, right? It's a decentralized technology that I think has this appeal in the sense that it's not regulated in the same respect. So cryptocurrency transactions in many respects are more confidential than credit cards, right? In which your credit card has your name, all your information. That's not necessarily the case with cryptocurrency. So, no one authority governs the blockchain. Instead, it's a collection of miners across this sort of decentralized network, right? So it's free from maybe political institutions, and it's free from the interference of government actors. And so maybe this is a benefit, is that this is just good for privacy, and it's good for avoiding maybe some of the downfalls of certain societies, especially maybe autocratic societies that have strict regulation. Okay. The last one is just this idea of economics more generally. So I think one of the main benefits of cryptocurrency is just that it could be good for the economy. So in one respect, cryptocurrency has lower fees than traditional credit cards. So credit cards, they maybe provide you credit to be able to buy a certain good or service in the economy, but they charge about a 3% fee on average, right? And this is sometimes and they do this because of the overhead and administration that goes into running, credit card business, you know, some expenses relating to marketing, sales, stuff like that. So, in general, also, cryptocurrency achieves universal regulations, avoids exchange rates. So it could be used to facilitate global commerce, and it allows, it allows a lot of protection to consumers, right? So a lot of people like cryptocurrency because the decentralized nature of it avoids maybe some of the interference that comes through large actors and institutions that collect huge amounts of personal data. So in the future, cryptocurrencies may be a more viable technology that avoids some of the downsides that we see in modern society as it relates to the collection of our personal data. So cryptocurrency could be used as a vehicle in e-commerce, and it provides financial stability in unstable economies. So in an economy like maybe Venezuela that was experiencing hyperinflation, where the value of the local currency was kind of relative to was kind of diminishing in value, cryptocurrency provides an alternative to a lot of people in that country. But as we'll talk about on the con side, cryptocurrency is also very volatile in price, with the price kind of goes up and down. All right. So next up, we'll talk about some of the con arguments on the topic. So one of the first major con arguments is just that cryptocurrency is used for both crime and terrorism. So on one hand, terrorist organizations and groups use cryptocurrency to fund their efforts. And this has been a huge problem. And I think some of the same benefits and the reasons why it appeals due to the privacy. Terrorists use cryptocurrency to fund their efforts. Terrorists also benefit from the anonymity provided by blockchain and cryptocurrency, and how that might be a good thing. And cryptocurrency also has been used due to this anonymous aspect to purchase a lot of illicit goods and services, such as weapons and drugs online. I gave the example earlier about the Silk Road, but this was an online platform on the dark web that was used to trade a lot of drugs, a lot of weapons. It was eventually shut down by the FBI, but I think it highlights the how cryptocurrency just generally has been used for terrorism and crime, right? And I think in debate you could impact that through a lot of the common impacts you might see with crime or terrorism. So the next, I think, major topic that's talked about a lot in terms of cryptocurrency is the environmental implications of cryptocurrency. So as we mentioned, cryptocurrency relies on cryptocurrency miners, so people who are verifying the transactions on their computers and really establishing the different layers of the blockchain. But one of the downsides of that is their computers need to have power, right, in order to verify sometimes these complex transactions. And so there's been a lot of recent evidence about how the effects of cryptocurrency is hugely negative on the environment, even contributing more to global greenhouse gas emissions and resulting in pollution to the environment due to the tremendous energy strain that this causes. So I think that's an important argument to be aware of. As I think a lot of people will make the argument that cryptocurrency is just bad in general for the environment and efforts to fight against climate change if cryptocurrency is pushing us over the edge. This argument is about dollar hegemony. So this is just the idea that right now the United States is the global world reserve currency. It has a lot of power in financial institutions. So a lot of countries, maybe our bond market is strong. They buy U.S. bonds. They also maybe have debt in US dollars, and push for international cryptocurrency maybe might knock the dollar off its throne. And then there's some potential impacts of this by creating things like unemployment, food supply, and widespread restrictions on freedom associated with the collapse of the US dollar. I think the idea is just that if the US dollar is sort of used in the international financial institution, for things like, and its power is used for people that have debt in the US dollar, and if that collapses, then there's kind of a spillover effect, chain reaction of sorts, of a lot of negative effects that we might see. Okay, so those are kind of the main arguments and a little bit of a background to cryptocurrency. Again, this will be a series of videos we'll do on the September or the November, December public forum resolutions. But hopefully this will provide a good kind of starting point for your research and as you kind of prepare to debate the topic. Thanks.